You're listening to Spark TV, where we bring you daily interviews with real women in business at all stages. I'm your host, Danielle Lewis, and I am so grateful to have you here. Amazing, Lauren. Welcome to Spark TV. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
So good. And you have stayed up late for me, so I appreciate you even more. Let's start out by telling everyone who you are and what you do.
Awesome. Yeah. So my name is Lauren Schiavone, and now I am the founder of Wonder Consulting. Wonder Consulting is an AI consultancy firm, and we're really focused on helping non-technical business leaders be set up for success in an AI-driven future. And I like to do that by demystifying AI into practical concepts that deliver business growth.
Wow, isn't this so cool? Like 10 years ago, this would not have even been a business.
Absolutely. Honestly, like kind of not even a couple of years ago,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
so true. So,
Yeah.
how did you, before we even go down the AI path, how did
Yes.
you get here? What
Where
is
they
your
get here.
story?
Yeah. So I spent my entire professional career before this at Procter and Gamble, working on some of the large, biggest brands. I spent my time there in consumer insights and brand management, as well as sales. I spent a lot of time working on product innovation and retail innovation, and a lot of work to drive change across the enterprise. I left P&G about a year and a half ago. It was a very personal decision. I have two young children, and I just wanted to do something that was much more flexible. And I kind of left P&G really not knowing what was next. And I had my second baby, and after, a couple months after that, I was like, had just a chance to lift my head up again, and just sort of look at the broader landscape. And I saw AI coming, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to transform and disrupt absolutely everything, the way we work, the way we live our lives. And I just decided to go really deep in upskilling, and I became super energized about it, right? I'm super passionate. And I think one of the reasons I did was because I thought to myself, oh my gosh, if I knew then at P&G what I know now, like the time it would have saved me, the energy it would have saved me, right? I would have been able to work on projects I found more interesting or more strategic. I would have been maybe able to spend more time with my family or doing the things, that I love to do. And so that's when I was sort of like, you know what, I really want to take this learning and apply it and help other leaders, have sort of the same aha moment and help drive that transformation across the businesses. This past summer, I decided to launch my own consultancy firm, and yeah, it's been an exciting ride.
Oh, this is just so incredible. And I love as well that you actually upskilled in this area. So it wasn't really your core skill or expertise. It was actually, this is a trend. This is what I see coming. I'm going to do the work, upskill, and get ahead of the game. I feel like a lot of people leave their corporate careers and then start a business in that discipline. So if they were a HR
Mhm.
person or a lawyer or an accountant or whatever, so that is really fascinating. Like, what gave you the drive to just go, I'm just going to start something completely new?
It's funny. Sometimes I'm like, what was I thinking? But no, I've always been interested in innovation. I was one of the first at P&G to work on our e-commerce business. I was one of the first on the Amazon team. So it's always excited me and energized me. And when I started to learn AI, I started to feel like I had felt in the early days of e-commerce, right? Like this is so exciting, but it's so much more exciting than e-commerce, because e-commerce was one new shopping modality, right? It just
Mhm.
was sort of a new way to shop. AI, will transform absolutely everything, right? So there's so much innovation, there's so many use cases, there's so much transformation to be had. So I just was sort of enamored, and I think, it's not that I have said goodbye to my previous career. I'm actually just blending the two, right? So
Mm.
I'm applying AI to the things that I've done before in my past, like marketing, like insights, like sales, like change management and driving change across an enterprise. So that's sort of, I'd say, like what makes me unique in this space, right? Is I have
Mm.
sort of the technical understanding of the AI, but combined with like how stuff actually gets done at an enterprise, right?
Yes.
And I think that's what's been really valuable to me. And then, it's funny though, the part about upskilling, because um it's an ongoing everyday thing in this space. And
Mm.
that's like also sort of been a bit of an adjustment, right? Because like when I was at P&G, I wasn't, trying to learn every day and upskill myself every day and trying to keep up with the pace of new information like this. And so that's just been sort of a new muscle to build.
Which I feel like is business ownership. I feel like the last
Mhm.
decade that I've been in business, I have had to learn something new every day. With, we wear all of the hats,
Yeah.
technology changes. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, we're talking about a huge innovation, but I think that excitement to learn something new and see how that can be applied to old ways of thinking or, business as usual tasks. I think
Yeah.
like capturing that excitement and passion, it just will go so far in so many areas of the business.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting about doing that, like as a solopreneur, is yes, I'm learning something new every day, but like I have this new confidence that like I can figure it out
Mm.
because I know how to use ChatGPT, right? Like, so well, like I'll give you an example, right? Like now I'm in this space, I have to like review contracts. Like I've never had to
Mm.
do that before, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I do this? But like with the help of ChatGPT, like I figured it out. I created a custom GPT, or I just, throw my contracts in and it, gives me back sort of what I need. It's not a lawyer. It's of course not a lawyer, and you should consult your lawyer when you need them.
Good disclaimer. I like
But
that.
yes, yes. But like I just want I particularly want women to know, right? Like, because I think
Mm.
sometimes we lack confidence that like, learn this stuff. It will help build your confidence. And actually on that note, there's what we call an AI adoption gap. So women are less likely to learn
Really?
AI, yes, than men. So the statistic is it's quite interesting because 8 out of 10 women, their jobs will be impacted by AI, but only 6 out of 10 men's jobs will be impacted by AI. Yet women are 30% less likely to learn AI. And that's
Wow.
because so many high achieving women, many, I'm sure many, I'm sure our listeners, there's this theory called this good girl theory. Okay. So, like, AI is cheating, like, AI is cutting
Mm.
corners. I don't do that. And so, part of my mission really is to help women upskill and learn these skills and also help them understand, like, it's not cheating. Like, you don't think a calculator is cheating or Excel or the internet. Right. And so, it's just a new tool. And I was doing a training with some dear friends actually, and one was sort of, got like halfway through, and she was like, "Gosh, like it does kind of feel like cheating." And I looked at her and I was like, "Hey, like stop with that thinking, because the man sitting next to you is not going to think that, right? So we need to all change our mindset on that."
I love that so much. It is so true. I think that I don't know why we like to do things the hard way. It's just absolutely bizarre. But I love that reframe that it is just another tool.
Yeah,
And, we have all of these tools at our disposal. This is just another one in the mix and just happens to be very advanced.
yeah.
So, on that topic of AI, what are you seeing in the market right now? Like, how can a woman in business act, or how should she be thinking about leveraging AI to grow her business?
Yeah. I think the first place to think about AI is it is absolutely a productivity tool. And that's probably like the
Mm.
first sort of use cases that are very applicable to, a business owner, like something that you're doing all the time. It takes a lot of time and maybe it's like quite tedious. And you can find a way to make it, much faster with an AI tool. But we need to shift our thinking from AI is not just a productivity tool to AI as a growth accelerator and can be a growth engine for your business. So it can, depending on what your business is, right, it can help you get to better insights for bigger ideas. It can help you create new services. It can help you deliver better work to your clients. It can help you better upskill your clients. It can essentially do so many things. And the way that I always tell people is, look, the world of AI is so overwhelming. Okay.
Mm.
Like there is a new tool every day, like really probably every hour. So I always tell people focus on what is called an LLM or a large language model. And ChatGPT is like the best example of an LLM, right? These models like ChatGPT are trained on massive amounts of data and they can do so many things. People today are like maybe just writing an email with ChatGPT. That is just scratching the surface of what is possible. And so what I always tell people is become an expert in a tool like ChatGPT, spend a lot of your time and energy, like stay focused, because that capability combined with your own expertise and experience, a critical part, those two together will give you superpowers. So
Mm,
stay focused, don't get distracted by the tools, and just become an expert. And because, by the way, those tools are getting better every day. And that's like
mm,
the thing also that like gets me energized and also continues to blow my mind is if you think about it, like AI is the least capable it will ever be. So people will, like it's easy to sort of, complain about things like, oh, it didn't give me like the best image or, oh, like, the ad didn't look great. Okay, well, it still created an ad in a fraction of the time at a fraction of the cost. And like, it wasn't that bad. And you better start learning that now because soon the technology is going to be incredible. And if you're not
mm.
learning now, you will be massively behind, honestly, in probably just a couple of months or a year or two.
Yeah, that is such incredible advice. I've never heard anyone say that before, that it is the least capable that it will be right now. Like you're so right. Everything is improving every day. Every time I go in there, it's like it's leveled up in some way. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm behind. I need to learn. But I do love that idea of, you know, focusing in on one tool, really learning that and using it as a kind of a jumping off point. I think
Yeah,
that's the interesting thing as well is, we don't have to be full on experts. We don't have to replace everything in our business with AI on day one. But if we just start with something small, see the impact and then sort of roll out from there. I love your, maybe the image isn't quite what you wanted it to be, or maybe the ad isn't, or maybe the article. It's like, but if you're staring at a blank page, it might take you hours to get started or hours to complete that task. If it gets you
exactly.
like
Yes, yes,
50% of the way, that's
yes.
huge.
Yes. And the other thing to keep in mind, like when you say article, is you have to keep in mind that, like most things in life, the quality of the input guides the quality of the output. So people will say all the time, oh, it doesn't sound like me. Okay. Well, if you spend time, sharing materials with it on how you speak, if you did a tone of voice analysis on yourself, if you shared that, like I know it will sound like you, right? And so also just sort of pausing and saying, okay, how do I do better? Because I see
Mm,
also like people get something back and they're like, this isn't what I wanted, and like that this is like ChatGPT, can't do anything. And but think about ChatGPT or a tool like that as a really capable, motivated, um, always pleasant, like intern or new hire. Okay. And when your intern or new hire comes to you and it's not the work you were looking for, you don't say, like, oh my gosh, you're so stupid. Like, get out of here.
you're
Right.
fired. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You say, okay, how do I provide more direction? How do I share
Mm.
some examples? Like, how do we go step by step? Right. And that's the mindset in which you need to be interacting with these tools. People kind of think it's like a one and done. No, you need to have a conversation. Like very few people get exactly what they are looking for on their first prompt. Like it is a process, it is a conversational tool back and forth.
Yeah, and I'm continuously blown away. So I've been using Chat GPT specifically for a while, and
Right.
it's like when we finish a task, it
Yes.
started talking to me like I talk to it. So I,
Right.
I have this funny like, "Oh my God, you're the best," like this that I say to people, and it started saying, "Oh, you're the best" to me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
"Wow, this is freaky."
Yeah. It really is incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just love that. I mean, you're so right. It is the effort we put in to someone or something. It's exactly the same with an AI tool. You do need to be prepared to, yeah, it can't just read your mind. Not yet, anyway.
Not yet.
thankfully.
Not yet. I mean, I think that's coming. And some days I'm like, why can't you just read my mind?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not there just yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it so much. It's so exciting. So, how did you go from employee to business owner? What was that transition like for you? So, I mean, obviously you were, in a period of transition. You mentioned second baby time and like
Hmm.
so exciting, new technology, new industry. Then when you kind of got your feet under the desk and you're
Yeah.
like, okay, now I run a business. What
Yeah.
did that feel like for you?
So I had like always told myself when my second baby was a year old that I wanted to get back to work. So it was like about around that time. And I was like starting to think of like just doing sort of traditional CPG, sales and marketing consulting. And I went to a local training and it was an AI training for small business owners. And I was there as like, a student, a participant. And I sat there and I was, just listening and I was like, oh my gosh, like I could teach this training. Right. And I was like coaching the people around me. And to be honest, that is the moment where I was like gain
Mm.
the confidence to say, I can do this. Cause I was sort of wavering back and forth. Like I knew kind of in my heart I wanted to do it, but I wasn't sure that I was ready. And in that
Mm.
moment, I was like, okay, I'm ready. And I sort of shared that with a mentor, and she was like, great, I'm going to introduce you to someone. And I met with that person and, with the help of AI, right, too, I, told that person sort of like what I thought their business opportunities were and like how I could help. And that was my very first client. So,
Wow.
um, yeah, but I think like, it's been like a process, right? Of like, oh, I need a website. Oh, I need an email. Like, what do I want my company name to be? Right? Like so much pressure. Um, but yeah, and then I think like the one thing, and I learned this at P&G, like the power of agility, I would call it. And like,
Mhm.
is that like, a couple times already I've kind of like, shifted my approach or changed up something that I was doing, right? Like, cause I think, um, yeah, I think that's just sort of responding to the feedback that you get and listening to your consumers, right? Um, so I started sort of with the plan and I'm pretty close to the plan still, but right, like some components have evolved.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's ongoing, isn't it? You just don't know what you don't know
Don't
in
know.
business a lot of the times. And it
Yeah.
is that process of, and technology changes and the new things
Yeah.
come along and
Yeah.
let's do that.
Yeah.
I love that so much. And how you mentioned, always fascinated by business growth. You mentioned your
Yeah.
first customer came from a mentor's referral. How have you
Uh-huh.
gone about growing the business so far?
Yeah. I think that's like candidly, right, one of the hardest
Yeah,
parts.
totally.
And certainly like flexing new muscles. I used to joke, like I still joke like I mean there are times people ghost me, right? And like I mean I when I was working at P&G like no one ever ghosted me. So I
No,
was
oh my
like,
God. I used to work for a
okay.
big corporate too, and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
shock, the rude shock of people not answering your phone call.
Yes. Yes. And or like, just like the pitter patter out, and um Uh, but like that's the first thing you sort of learn is like, okay, thicker skin, right? Thicker
Mhm,
skin.
mhm.
And like not taking it personal and also realizing that there's like, like also something I learned at P&G, like a moment of receptivity, right? Like I never take it personal. I've learned not to take it personal because I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stay top of mind for that person. And when they're ready, like they'll know like that I can help them, right? Because like
Absolutely.
they're oh crap moment on AI, like it's gonna come, right? Like it's gonna come. I don't know when, but it's gonna come. So yes, certainly reaching out to my network has sort of been a way. Having some of my mentors introduce me to some other folks that were maybe part of my direct network. And then also getting involved in sort of other AI communities, have given me opportunities. Like I was able to speak at a conference, and that gave me some. And then my LinkedIn. So I think like that was another thing of like going from my role at P&G. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, like and I kind of ignored LinkedIn, right? Like maybe I'd get on to like respond to a recruiter or something, but like I certainly wasn't posting, right?
Mm.
And so now I have to like build a content strategy, and like a key part of like my branding or my marketing, right? Like is what I put on LinkedIn, and that's just like again a new muscle, and but something that I've learned is critically important and does lead to some great opportunities. Yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting that, when we're employees, sometimes we don't think about our personal brand, but
yeah,
when we're business owners, like our personal brand is such a powerful sales and marketing channel.
yeah, yeah. I think And like that's been tricky to sort of like figure out like what do I want to stand for? Like what do I want that to be, and how is it differentiated? So I think like for me it's a couple parts. Like one, it's being an AI like practitioner, because many are like AI theorists and haven't actually like sat in the seats of the people doing the work. So being
Mm.
super practical like is an important. I think the second thing is, anyone can get on there and show the latest and greatest AI tools. It's not really my game, because I like to instead like share the more strategic, how to think about this strategically, or share the strategic frameworks.
Mm.
And then the third part is like trying to be really authentic and transparent, and to sort of like sharing personal stories again, which is like nothing I would have ever done before. But the first time I did that, my 3-year-old was giving up her pacifier, and she like we had this whole thing. She was going to get her nails done and she was going to pay with her pacifiers. And she said, and they're going to go back to their mommies and daddies. And I was like, yes, they're going to go back to their mommies and daddies. So we go through all that. We get home that night, and, she's a little sad going to bed. And she's like, are my, passies with their mommies and daddies? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, do you want to like see where they are? She's like, yeah. And I was like, okay. So I just like opened ChatGPT, and I'm like, create a picture of Passy Land and a Passy family. And they were a hit. And like she loved them, and like
Wow.
instantly calmed her down. And like they're still sitting, they're taped up in our crib. Right. Cause I'm like, will it make you feel better if like I tape them up? She's like, yes. So yeah, I shared that story, and that was kind of the first time I really ever talked about, my personal life. But it got like great, interest. And I actually just started a new series every Mondays. So I say Mondays are for the moms, and it's the AI don't have time for that series, AI tips and tricks for busy moms. And like so far, it's also been like, had a ton of engagement. And that's obviously something like super personal and authentic to me. Yeah, and I tried just to be really authentic. Last week, I uploaded a picture of my face after I got this like laser treatment, because it was like really hurting me, and I didn't know what to put on it, and I didn't listen when I left. Yeah, so authenticity, I think, is a key part of the branding.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's interesting. I feel like if we have a problem, somebody else is probably experiencing it
Yeah,
as well, right? So being open and honest and sharing the stories, I think that's what helps us connect with other people.
yeah,
It's so easy to hide behind a big brand. And I think more and more consumers of any kind want that behind the scenes, want that authenticity and connection
yeah,
versus just, the big Nike brand logo or the
yeah,
P&G or the whatever it
yeah,
is. It's
yeah,
like we
yeah.
want to buy from people.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting about it is I saw this post from someone who does like business coaching, right? And she
Mm.
sort of was like, when I started, she was in HR. I was going to a lot of HR conferences, and I was like making a lot of HR relationships. And then I realized like, wait, like these people are like all doing the same thing I'm doing. Like I got to get to the other people. And I
Yes.
sort of was like, oh, my posts are getting a lot of attention from like people in the AI community,
Yeah.
like people kind of just like me. Like I need to figure out in my content strategy, like how do I get outside of that? So like the sharing more personal stories and the more like the mom stuff, the relatable stuff has been, much better for bringing in like non AI people.
The people who don't know it yet.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
And that's like such an important thing to think about with content, with marketing, with our
Yeah.
messaging. Yeah, it is. Don't forget, like, we're not talking to our industry peers. We're talking to the people who we're trying to serve.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly.
Oh, I love it so much. Lauren, you are absolutely incredible. Now, I always like to leave these podcasts with one last piece of advice. So, reflecting on your time in business, what would be a piece of advice that you would give to another woman on her business journey?
Um, well, first I'd say like just do it, right?
Yeah.
Like go for it. But I'd say be confident, have confidence in yourself. And I think, I think every woman struggles with that to some extent. And certainly I have. But it's interesting because having a daughter changed my perception on it a little bit.
Mm.
Um, and and I just think to myself and said, like, what would I tell her in this moment, right? Like, I'd say, you're brave, you're strong, we do hard things, right? And I'm like, why am I not talking to myself like
Yeah.
that? And so it was just sort of an interesting moment where I realized, like, okay, like my self-talk needs to be positive, like the same way that I would like say it to her or encourage her. So that's what I'd say, like, be brave, be confident, we can do hard things.
Oh, amazing. I love it so much. Lauren, thank you so much for your time this evening. It's been
Yeah.
absolutely incredible to have you on the podcast and sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That wraps another episode of Spark TV. Shout out to Spark TV sponsor IP Australia for their amazing support of the Spark podcast and women in business. And if no one tells you today, you've got this.